Okay, so hello every folks, welcome to a bit of a test here. Basically what I wanted to know was there was a rumor that I saw going around that was saying that Dex weapons allegedly had basically split their bonus to also benefit from agility. So there's a few things that we can potentially do to see if this is true, because here's the thing. The numbers on the right side here are kind of misleading a lot of the time, okay? A lot of the time they will just be straight up wrong, so that's what we're going to be kind of looking at here. So for example, in this case where it says 1062 for the attack power, it is taking everything into consideration. It's taking the penetration of the bow, it's taking the scaling and stuff like that off of the bow. It's like basically a best case scenario number in a lot of cases. So the question that I saw was again over agility. So let me see, first of all, base numbers here, like while the actual stat screen is a little bit unreliable in terms of, you know, final damage numbers, not only because of your side of things, but because obviously on the enemy side of things, things are going to be resisting in different ways. We're going to start off with this, and then we're going to test real world numbers and just kind of see how they do. I'm going to go ahead and use a essentially just a low-level unit to kind of test what we're looking at here. So we're just going to go ahead and get a test unit over here. Let's go to the shop and let's... ooh, nice. Let's go ahead and do something like this. Alright, so say hello to Ouch. This is the lowest vitality unit that rolled after a few rerolls of the store. We're giving her an elemental weakness just so we can see the biggest potential numbers when it comes to this whole thing. So test 1 is going to be a going to just be the archer with a longbow. Since they will end up scaling the most, with an elemental advantage, using the jiggy, and we'll start there. Alright, so without any sort of boosts or whatever else, just kind of as they are, with neutral equipment, we're seeing 1158 off the basic shot here. Again, elemental, you know, bonus and whatever else, just to show us how the numbers scale. So let's use that as our baseline and go from there. Basically what I want to find out is which stats will affect their hits the most. Obviously gear is going to be a mishmash of different stats, so we're not going to have perfect numbers, but I want to see what ends up affecting it the most. And then from there we'll see if we can get some elemental funkiness going on. Alright, so first bonus that we're seeing here is going to be Ring of the Horde +1, giving 4 penetration and 10 strength, allegedly boosting that to a 1087 on the normal attack power here. So we'll go ahead and throw that on there and see how they do in training. In a surprisingly similar turn of events, that strength bonus ended up boosting it to 1187. Really would have expected more there, but okay, moving on. Next up is going to be going just penetration here, so the War Ring, which is just boosting its penetration by twice as much as before. Allegedly a 1077 on attack value. It looks like we're getting a very surprisingly similar return, though still a little bit disappointing there, with a 1173 of Dex. Looks like we're showing 1092 on the attack front here. If it's similar to before, we're probably seeing ballpark a pretty similar result. We're probably going to be seeing damage somewhere in the 1200 range. So far, in terms of testing and all of that, we've consistently seen that it's roughly adding either 100 or something similar, roughly about 96, just overall attack value off of weapon skill alone. So the weapon skill, the way that I'm interpreting this is that it's adding, again, roughly 96. I don't know how the 1087 turned into 1187 in that case, but either way, you know, sometimes you get some error numbers, and once again we have a 1193, which roughly tells me that we're probably getting a 2-point-something return off of those weapon skill ranks. And to confirm this, we're going to do the weapon earring next. Alright, so in this case, looks like the earring is showing up at 1089. So it seems very similar to the other one with some defensive bonuses. Let's see how the numbers end up shaking out. If this is correct, it actually should come out pretty dramatically on top here, but let's see. Okay, so overall, that comes out with the earring basically just having a minor defensive bonus over the over the Dex one. Let's move on to the Agility one next to see what that actually provides. It's saying it's a 1072, which would be the lowest so far. And let's see how that ends up looking in testing. Alright, so I'm not quite sure on this whole agility situation when it comes to bows. As far as I can tell here, 1168, the boost that it's giving seems largely like it would be the penetration bonus from the... well, if we look over here, it comes with a penetration bonus as well. So I feel like it's coming from the attack and def bonus here, more so than the actual agility. Strange. Anyway, let's see how else we can test this. Alright, so for the sake of comparison, we're now going to run all of those tests again with a technically weaker bow, with the Tempest bow here. Obviously, you know, these are all relic items, they can roll different factors, but it's going to be giving him an elemental bonus, so we'll see if the actual scaling ends up running any sharper this time around. Starting with the Alacrity ring, because it's the one that I had on him already, at 1169, so he's basically more or less doing the same damage that he would have done with the Jiggler bow here, with a weapon with a lot less, not a lot less, but a few percentage points less scaling, and about roughly, I think it was like 25% less penetration. She doesn't really have any armor to bypass, so that penetration wouldn't really do very much here. So technically speaking, the attack bonus didn't really make much of a difference in this case. Again, you know, it's going to be all down to scaling and stats. So we're probably going to be seeing something very similar in this case, which basically makes me wonder if, well, same type element isn't as much of a thing as it's been made out to be. Anyway, let's move on to the next thing. Alright, next up here we have the earring. So we're coming out slightly on top once again with 1190, so we can roughly say that having a same type element bonus feels like somewhere in the ballpark of about 30 extra attack value. That is to say, like, you know, overall, like actual hard attack value on the weapon itself. Somewhere in that ballpark, just kind of how it felt like back in the intro there last month. Anyway, let's move on to the next one. Up we got the Dex ring coming up at 1195. Again, these are all very minor bonuses so far. Like technically this is still the highest that it's been up to this point, but it's still not going to be enough to, you know, even be like 10% more damage over the next runner down. Alright, next test. Alright, next up we got the War Ring, doing roughly the same thing as before, this time coming in at 1174. Doesn't feel like it made much of a difference with this bow whatsoever. And lastly here we have the Strength Ring, once again pretty much doing the same thing as last time. So 1189 this time around. Alright, so out of curiosity, I decided to test out two different things here. I'm going to try the effects of all of those same items, plus a few extras here, on a Pinion Blade. So basically, just once again going for a different dex weapon to test this theory. So I'm going to go ahead and test both casting and regular damage with this thing. So regular melee is 1058. Alright, so 1058 and 674 with the War Ring. While I don't expect physical stats to affect, you know, casty type stuff, you know, particularly strongly here, I figure it's worth testing just in case, because there have been some other funky things. This, by the way, is not taking into consideration weapon skill whatsoever. So, you know, magic will essentially be coming out a little bit on the bottom there. But there is a sort of conclusion that I want to see if I can draw out of this. Alright, with War Ring and no skill, we're now looking at 1037. I actually don't remember, I misspoke on the last one, but the last one was the Strength Ring, not the War Ring. 674 still on the casting, so isn't affected by, or at least it doesn't seem to be directly affected by the War Ring's bonus here. That being said, they might actually have the same bonus, I forgot to check. Next up is Dex Ring. Looks like we're roughly getting the same damage melee-wise at 1060. Still 674 on the casting. We can confirm one thing here also, that if we just put the earring by itself, we can confirm that you still have to be equipping skills in order to get the bonus here. So we're going to go ahead and put that on there just to kind of have it. And we'll go ahead and get into the training here. Okay, so this puts us up at 1056. Question is, does it end up boosting anything tornado-wise? It actually doesn't, interestingly enough. It's still 674, so it is strictly... So when they're saying that it boosts magic, I guess that takes it to mean that it is strictly for penetration purposes. That it literally is just working like Augment, that it only penetrates, it doesn't actually boost. Just for the sake of data here, I went ahead and also took off any ring entirely, just to show a sort of base value. So with absolutely nothing, it goes down to 1029 on the stabby side, and on the casting side, still identical. Definitely starting to get a clearer picture here, but anyway, let's move on to the next thing. Alright, so next up we're seeing Alacrity with a 1034 on the stabby side, and color me shocked if it's still a 674. Yep, sure is. On the casting side. So there's two more I want to test, and that's Int and Mind to see how far they go. Next is Int here at 1034 on the stabbing, and then on the casting we have 693. So okay, we can see that Int is actually properly scaling magic, whereas the physical stuff was strictly for penetration. Moving on. Okay, and then for this one, Mind is still 1034 with 689 on the casting. Okay, so this one's purely for curiosity. Over here it still shows attack value at 870 for this dagger, right? I was curious to see if stacking just stuff that ends up matching your particular elemental affinity actually does anything. Like obviously the vests will say that they improve abilities and resistance, but they do specifically say abilities, they don't say attacks. And I'm curious how accurate that is, because I don't know how particular that phrasing is, because technically speaking, there's an affinity bonus for whatever reason on circlets, on gloves. Like basically all of the magic gear has pretty strong affinity bonuses, like to the tune of 16% towards every element, which is what makes casters and things so dang resilient against it. But if we compare that to the effect of no ring whatsoever, what does that look like? 1059 and 681, but please bear in mind these aren't exactly boosts per se. Just because if we look at the equipment in question, it is giving us other stats as well, like Int and Mind off of this thing, which doesn't exactly explain as strong of a boost as we were getting, because we'd have to be getting roughly equivalent to about a 10 boost off the circlet, because that's what we were getting off of the ring. So is it a little bit less? Yes. Like for example, the Mind Ring was 689. This one's 681. Well, okay. I mean, if it's about that much less, I guess that makes sense. It's literally just the circlet being the circlet. So it doesn't feel like that affinity bonus was necessarily giving us anything extra there. So let's test that whole wind abilities part of it. Okay, so already not looking amazingly promising here, because basically he's running maxed out wind gear right now, as far as I can get at this point in the game anyway. So he's running a full complement of wind boosting stuff as far as I have it. So he's got the staff, he's got the robes. To my knowledge, this has already been tested thoroughly, and it does nothing this time, aside from give you resistances, but either way, we're going to go test it just to be sure. So 694 with a full matching element and an elemental weakness. Alright, so we are still seeing 694 when swapping out for the fire staff and robes. So yeah, I mean, look, this has been tested pretty thoroughly. It's... out of curiosity, how do these stabs do? So 334 with the Wand of Fire. Alright, and then 347 from the same type bonus with the staff. Not really anything too amazing to test out there, but alright. Let's get to some conclusions. Okay, so let's go ahead and draw some conclusions here. So basically what these numbers are telling me, just in general terms, is that when it comes to the kind of three main, damage types, so to speak, when it comes to melee and range, generally speaking, at a base level, they basically do the same kind of damage, while magic does a bit less, roughly speaking about half as much. But on the flip side, it seems like ranged is subject to the most extreme scaling versus basically versus any defensive stats. Melee seems to get a bit more of a free pass as far as that goes, and then magic once again gets a little bit of a free pass. It isn't resisted nearly as much this time around, but obviously it has a lower overall maximum. So generally speaking, we can more or less say that, you know, melee will essentially be locked into its same rough range. Due to that extreme scaling, ranged attacks, on the other hand, seem like they would be able to, like, I know for a fact that I've seen them scale beyond these numbers. So, for example, when it comes to, like, a breach or, you know, fear, what have you, range seems to scale a lot more dramatically. But at the same time will essentially be scaled down a lot easier as well, which, again, technically speaking, it worked that way in PSP as well. It was just, they kind of put the bar in a different place over there. And then meanwhile, on the magic side, it's just going to remain overall just kind of more consistent overall. As far as the different stats go, though, comparing all of this stuff, I can safely say the whole agility thing, I'm feeling that was something else. I'm not sure where they got that info from, because more or less, the agility, or sorry, the Ring of Alacrity, the agility boost, did worse than the War Ring in these tests. It did roughly 3 less, which means that it was the attack boost, meaning that the agility itself did not do anything. So, you know, jury's still out on what agility actually does this time around. I'm gonna go ahead and do some tests later, because I'm like 99% confident that it affects the secondary effects on finishers and things, which feels like it would still give a reason to carry it around. Not to mention it might explain why so many agility characters are so dang consistent with that stuff, but, you know, either way, we'll test that out. As far as I'm aware, the One Vision folks haven't looked into that yet, I don't think. If they have, you know, sorry. I'm just sharing what I know. But yeah, so as far as dexterity stuff generally goes, I mean, dexterity ring definitely gave the most results. The earrings gave the second best result, although realistically they still end up coming out on top just due to defensive bonuses. For those that didn't catch those, basically every one of these normal +1 rings have an attack and defense of +4. But then we'll give you a elemental affinity of 5% reduction versus a lot of things, whereas on the flip side, you get a 5% racial reduction. So basically, this will be far better on the physical end, but you still get a higher attack and defense value, as well as a tiny bit extra health. Honestly, if you're at the point of 15 health being the make-or-break thing, I think there's other problems going on, but either way, overall, you're getting roughly the same value, give or take, but at the same time, the defenses are a lot more universally applicable. It's a minor adjustment. I mean, I feel like overall, just earrings would be the best one of the bunch. I have yet to actually find any elemental chokers as of yet. Still kind of trying to find those. Nobody's told me where they are yet. So who knows? You know, there might be more to it. As far as elemental affinities off of gear, they still say they enhance light and resistance, or they still enhance abilities and resistance. For what reason, I can't tell. I cannot tell anything that they're actually boosting. The resistance part is accurate. The actual abilities part seems to be like flavor text. I'm not certain. Again, you know, with Tsuna game, there's always going to be a million hidden mechanics. As far as I can tell, though, that part is not currently accurate. I can't say for sure, though. So we might see a patch in the future. It might just be a flavor text thing. I don't know for sure, but either way. See you guys in the next one. Hopefully this was at least an interesting test there, and as soon as we know more, I will report more. Have yourself a good one. Take care.